Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel where we dive into the galaxy's most thrilling sci-fi adventures. In today's story, you'll follow Captain Ethan Cross and Marina Tide on a perilous journey under alien oceans, risking everything to stop a deadly plague that threatens both humans and Aquarians. One of the most gripping moments near the end features a life-or-death showdown in a secret lab, where Ethan, despite being gravely ill, manages a final desperate shot that topples the villainous Chancellor Arion's cruel scheme. What happens after that dramatic confrontation? Will the newly synthesized cure truly save both species? We hope you enjoy listening to the story. A swirl of bright cerulean engulfed the observation window of the Neptune's Aegis. Beyond the triple reinforced glass, an endless expanse of blue horizon met Skoindemi. The starship's sensors indicated this oceanic world, Epsilon Oceanus, was teeming with hidden cities beneath the waves, all belonging to the Aquarians. 20 years ago, humanity had signed the most tenuous of peace treaties with these amphibious beings. Yet the cultural barrier still ran deep. Ambassadorial visits came and went, but trust never took root. To humans, the Aquarians were an enigmatic, proud people who claimed dominion over nearly every watery planet in the system. Their empire, sometimes called the Pearl Crescent, was a patchwork of fiefdoms under the authority of the Aquarian High Court. For centuries, they had lived in relative isolation, occasionally trading rare minerals from the ocean floors with passing merchant fleets. A sudden beep on the console forced Captain Ethan Cross to tear his eyes away from the magnificent water world rotating below. His short, neat hair and crisp naval uniform underscored his meticulous nature, though there was a youthful spark of curiosity beneath his formal demeanor. He was no longer the fresh-faced ensign who had first encountered an Aquarian scout ship years ago. Now he commanded one of the Terran Navy's most formidable vessels. "Captain," came the voice of Ensign Salazar over the intercom, "we've been cleared to maintain low-orbit geostationary position. The Aquarian capital city of Pearl Spire has opened its docking spire. They say they're expecting us for the diplomatic reception in 2 hours." Ethan leaned toward the intercom. "Acknowledged, Ensign. Keep me posted on any fluctuations in local aquatic current patterns. I hear Epsilon Oceanus is famous for its intense riptides and underwater storms. Make sure our submersible attachments remain secure." "Aye, Captain." Outside the window, two sleek Aquarian vessels approached, gliding gracefully through the stratosphere, part submarine, part starship. Their hulls bore markings of fish-scale design, shimmering like polished pearls in the pale daylight. For a moment, Ethan wondered if this mission would truly pave the way for better relations between humans and the Aquarians. Little did he know that, elsewhere on Epsilon Oceanus, a clandestine plot was already in motion. Rumors of a weaponized disease, an ancient plague from the early days of first contact, were stirring beneath the waves. Those who knew of its existence whispered that the so-called Aqua plague might be resurrected to expunge humans from Aquarian-controlled systems once and for all. In the capital city's labyrinthine corridors, in hidden labs below the ocean floor, and in the hearts of conspirators who would stop at nothing for power, something dark was brewing. The fate of two civilizations would soon hinge on a single meeting, an encounter fueled by distrust, overshadowed by betrayal, but destined to spark a flicker of hope that could unite Aquarian and human alike. The Neptune's Aegis lowered its submersible shuttle through Pearl Spire's main docking spire, a marvel of Aquarian engineering that shot up from the ocean depths like a metallic sea lily. The structure seemed designed not only to welcome visitors, but also to awe them. Twisting columns of coral and sculpted metal rose in fluid arches, each arch lit by bioluminescent sea creatures that danced in swirling patterns of light. Captain Ethan Cross stepped off the shuttle ramp, accompanied by two Terran officers. Salazar followed close behind, clearly trying not to stare in wonder at the aquatic wonders around him. Armed with ceremonial swords rather than standard firearms, at the Aquarians' request, they walked the corridor leading to the Grand Coral Hall, where a formal reception awaited. Half an hour later, the Coral Hall was ablaze with color. Violas, oranges, shimmering aquas that poured in through domed glass ceilings above. Underwater waterfalls and gentle cascades parted around floating aquatic lanterns. The watery environment was contained behind transparent walls, giving the illusion that everything was underwater. In truth, the hall itself was pressurized to standard Terran levels, making it suitable for both species to mingle freely. Aquarian nobles moved through the crowd in elegant attire, reminiscent of fish fins and seashell motifs. Their skin tones ranged from pale seafoam to deep turquoise. Some boasted subtle, ornate gill frills around their necks. Others wore decorative coral crowns. Beside each was a swirl of translucent drapery, shimmering with each graceful motion. As Ethan and his officers made their entrance, a whisper passed through the gathering. Humans rarely visited Pearlspire, and never in such a display of cooperative intent. This was a significant milestone in diplomatic relations, or so it was being portrayed. "Captain Cross," called a voice. An Aquarian with an imposing stature and teal-colored skin approached. He wore layered sashes resembling waves pinned with large pearls. "I am Lord Selther, liaison to the High Council. Welcome to Pearlspire." Ethan bowed slightly. "An honor, Lord Selther. My crew and I thank you for your hospitality. We look forward to forging a new bond between our people." Before they could continue, a new presence glided into their circle. She was shorter than many of the other Aquarians, with hair that fell like ribbons of sea silver down her back. Her skin was a gentle hue of emerald, and she wore a close-fitting garment of shimmering black scales that accentuated her lithe figure. "My lord," she addressed Selther, though her striking purple eyes remained fixed on Ethan. "Shall I entertain our guests?" "Ah, yes, of course." Selther cleared his throat. "Captain Cross, allow me to introduce Marina Tide, one of our most gifted sea song performers. She is also a valued advisor on cultural matters." Marina offered the faintest of smiles. "Captain, it's a pleasure to meet you. We rarely receive Terran visitors, much less a warship in our waters." Ethan returned a polite nod, ignoring the subtle jabs in her remark. "I assure you Neptune's Aegis is here for peaceful purposes. The Terran Federation believes in cooperation with the Aquarian people." Marina's eyes, a deep shade of amethyst, flickered with mild amusement. "A noble sentiment indeed." She gestured toward the banquet table at the far end of the grand hall. "Please allow me to escort you. Our best ocean-harvested delicacies await: carapace canapes, deep-sea anemone rolls, and for your enjoyment, an array of beverage infusions we call coral wine." Ethan offered an arm. Reluctant but intrigued, he allowed Marina to guide him through the throng of onlookers, while his officers followed in Selther's wake. He felt an involuntary shiver. The contact of her hand on his arm seemed warmer than expected from an aquatic being. Little did he know that behind Marina's cultured smile and refined politeness lay an entirely different motive. She was there at the behest of more clandestine forces that had identified Captain Cross as a primary target for acquiring crucial Terran intelligence. His presence here was the perfect opportunity for infiltration, and she had been chosen specifically because her physiology was somewhat compatible with humans. That made her both an ideal spy and a dangerous wildcard. The High Council might know nothing of her hidden orders, but certain individuals, like Chancellor Arion, knew exactly how to wield her gifts. At the buffet, Ethan lifted a crystal glass brimming with a subtle teal liquid. "So," he said softly, "Marina Tide, was it? Are you an emissary of sorts? You appear more refined than a simple entertainer." Marina held her own crystal flute of coral wine, swirling the luminescent fluid. "I perform at the royal courts, but I also serve as a consultant when it comes to bridging cultural gaps." Her half-smile was practiced, friendly, without being too familiar. Aquarians treasure the artistry of sea song, as well as the nuance of diplomacy. Sometimes the two go hand in hand. Ethan studied her for a moment. "That's quite poetic. In our culture, song flows like water. It breathes life, influences emotion, even shapes one's spirit. But I suspect you Terrans have your own methods for stirring hearts, warships, for instance." The remark was light, but there was an edge to her tone. Ethan simply gave a wry chuckle. "Our warship is primarily for defense. The galaxy is a large place, Ms. Tide." She set down her flute and took a step closer. "Oh, it is indeed. And humans have expanded so rapidly. Some among my people believe it is threatening." Ethan had heard such sentiments before. "Surely not all. We stand for mutual exploration. Cooperation can benefit us both. Technology sharing, resource exchange." Her lips curled into the faintest smirk. Yes, I've read the official stance on cooperation. It's my job to recite it back to you, is it not? The atmosphere seemed to thicken. Around them, the grand choral hall resonated with laughter, music, and the warm hum of conversation. Yet in this small pocket of space, it felt as if an invisible current had pulled them aside from the crowd, forging an unexpected connection in the tension. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. He wasn't sure what to make of Marina. She was at once gracious and cryptic, almost as if she wore two faces. The hair on the back of his neck prickled, an instinct from years of service. Still, the success of this diplomatic mission hinged on forging relationships with key Aquarians. So he pressed on. I imagine this event must be quite dull for a performer of your caliber, he said, gesturing to the cluster of dignitaries. You're used to entertaining, not small talk. On the contrary, she said, sometimes the subtlest performance is the most rewarding. Her cryptic reply lingered in the air as she took his arm again. Come, Captain. Let me introduce you to some of our ranking officials. You'll want their support if you truly hope for an alliance. As they moved across the floor, illusions of synergy between Terran and Aquarian glimmered overhead in arcs of watery light. But like the tides that masked swirling undercurrents below, the grand reception camouflaged the fractious ambitions lurking just out of sight. That same evening, once the festivities had reached a lull and most guests departed, Marina slipped quietly through the labyrinth of Pearl Spire's corridors. The walls here were different, less decorative, more utilitarian. This was the older section of the city, constructed decades ago, where it led to the deeper vantage points below the ocean's surface. At an unmarked door, she paused, checking over her shoulder. Then she tapped out a sequence on the digital lock. With a gentle hiss, the door slid aside to reveal a dark room lit only by a flickering holographic panel. Inside stood a tall figure cloaked in pearl gray. His posture was rigid, face mostly obscured by the cowl, but the faint glint in his eyes was unmistakable. This was Chancellor Arion, being one of the most powerful political figures in the Pearl Crescent Empire. Arion's voice rumbled softly, a measured baritone. I trust the reception went smoothly. Marina lowered her eyes in respect. Yes, Chancellor. Captain Cross was in attendance. He is, as the intel described, formal, disciplined, and quite focused on his mission of peace. A slow smile tugged at Arion's thin lips. Peace. A foolish notion, given how quickly humans colonize any planet that suits them. Did he suspect anything from you? No, she replied, stepping closer to the console. He remains cautious, but I believe he accepted my role as an eager cultural liaison. He's curious, perhaps a little entranced by the novelty of our society. Excellent. Then you've established a rapport. Marina folded her arms, recalling the look in the Terran captain's eyes, a blend of intrigue and wariness. Yes, enough to proceed. She knew exactly why she had been chosen. Aside from her skills, her physiology was one of the few that did not reject human contact entirely. While many Aquarians considered the notion of intimacy with a human taboo, her training and unique adaptability made her the perfect weapon of seduction and subterfuge. Arion turned to the console and brought up a holographic readout. It displayed a rotating DNA helix, half in blue, half in emerald green. You know what's at stake, he said quietly. The High Council resists my calls to handle the human threat more decisively. But you and I see the bigger picture. Marina studied the helix with interest, though a flicker of uncertainty glimmered behind her eyes. The intelligence suggests the Terrans are building outposts near our border. Our empire's expansion has stagnated, while theirs only grows. We risk losing everything if we do not act. Precisely. Arion tapped the display, causing the helix to zoom in on a toxic marker. You've heard the legends of the Aqua plague, the disease that once ravaged Aquarian colonies when humans first made contact centuries ago? Marina nodded. Those tales were half myth, half warning. An ancient sickness that supposedly emerged from intimate contact between humans and certain Aquarians. It spread uncontrollably among Aquarians but left humans largely unaffected, or so the old story said. Arion's next words were clipped and cold. The Aqua plague was never fully eradicated. It was contained, suppressed, hidden by our ancestors who feared it. But as we speak, the older strains are being genetically re-engineered in a secret lab below the Great Reef. My personal lab. Marina's gaze flicked up to him. She had known Arion had some plan involving a pathogen, but hearing it so blatantly confirmed caused a chill to run down her spine. "You want to use it against them," she said, her voice hushed. His pale eyes narrowed. "Humans have threatened our sovereignty for too long. If we can harness the plague properly, mutate it to affect only humans, it becomes our greatest deterrent, the ultimate weapon." She suppressed the uneasy twist in her stomach. "And my role? To gather whatever data we need from Captain Cross." Arion's grin was predatory. "Yes, you'll seduce him, glean his secrets, and secure a sample of his genetic code. Perhaps a hair, perhaps direct bodily fluids, whatever method you prefer. That data is crucial for calibrating the pathogen so it will exclusively target humans." Marina exhaled slowly. For an instant, her thoughts trailed to the glimmer in Captain Cross's eyes, the sincerity in his voice. She banished those thoughts. She had sworn loyalty to the Empire, to Arion's cause. "Understood," she said quietly. Arion handed her a small case. "Inside, you'll find a stealth recorder and a microanalysis syringe. Use it discreetly. Once you have the sample, bring it to me." She nodded, gripping the case. "It will be done." "Good," Arion said. "The High Council's naive calls for unity with humans endanger our entire empire. Soon they'll see how truly fragile the peace is, and we'll be the ones with the advantage." With that, Marina took her leave. Yet as she exited into the corridor's watery blue glow, a nagging doubt surfaced in her mind. She was fully prepared to manipulate Captain Cross, but a part of her wondered what lines she might be forced to cross, and whether the cost would be more than she had anticipated. Over the next few days, a flurry of diplomatic activities consumed Pearlspire. Official after official greeted the Terran guests, each repeating promises of cooperation, resource sharing, cultural exchanges, maybe even joint scientific ventures. Every evening concluded with sumptuous banquets, vibrant aquatic performances, and pleasant, if somewhat superficial, conversation. Captain Ethan Cross kept a watchful eye on the Aquarian hosts. He sensed an undercurrent of tension, as though something simmered beneath the veneer of pleasantries. Marina had become his most frequent companion during these events, guiding him through the city's labyrinthine spires, introducing him to minor nobles, and offering glimpses into Aquarian life. She performed sea songs that entranced the Terran delegates, her voice resonating with the acoustics of the watery architecture in ways that felt almost hypnotic. On the fifth day, Lord Selther announced a special tour. "Today, we shall explore the undersea vistas beyond Pearlspire. You'll witness the famed coral caravans, the vibrant reefs that supply much of our city's food and trade." 4 Aquarian escort vessels assembled, with Ethan and a small group of Terran diplomats boarding one. Marina, wearing a more utilitarian outfit, thin polymer weaving that pressed snugly against her emerald-hued skin, sat beside him at the pilot's console. "Hang on," she said, activating the submersion systems. The vessel detached from the docking spire and gently descended beneath the surface, quickly enveloped by the azure glow of oceanic depths. Through the transparent hull, Ethan marveled at the kaleidoscope of marine life. Luminous fish swirling in schools, shimmering eels weaving through pillars of coral, vast reef towers extended like underwater skyscrapers, teeming with aquatic flora that glowed in pulses of green, pink, and purple. "This is extraordinary," he breathed, pressing a hand to the glass. Marina briefly glanced over, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Yes, it's our pride. The Aquarians have nurtured these reefs for centuries. Every coral formation is carefully cultivated to ensure biodiversity." Ethan turned toward her. "It's beautiful. You must be proud of this heritage." She gave an almost shy tilt of her head, an expression he wasn't used to seeing on her usually confident face. "I am. Pearlspire might seem imposing, but it draws life from ecosystems like these." They glided lower. In the distance, Ethan spotted giant submersible caravans loaded with crates of resources harvested from the seafloor. Shellfish, rare minerals, sea pearls. Aquarian workers, many wearing rebreather masks and exoskeleton suits, guided the process. It resembled a bustling marketplace, but all under the waves. Marina guided the vessel near one such caravan so the Terran envoys could see. Then she started explaining the significance of certain exotic species crucial to Aquarian cuisine and medicine. With every word, her passion for her people shone through. It was a side of her he found oddly compelling. At one point, while Lord Selther was distracting the other Terran diplomats with trade data, Marina subtly leaned toward Ethan. "Captain," she murmured, "if you'd like a closer look at the reef structures, I can arrange for a smaller subpod. We could examine some deeper corals rarely seen by outsiders." Ethan arched a brow. "That sounds intriguing. Would it be safe?" A playful spark lit her eyes. "I've done it countless times, trust me. I wouldn't lead you astray." Against his better judgment, he found himself nodding. Part of him recognized that caution was wise, but curiosity and perhaps a touch of fascination with Marina spurred him forward. They docked at a reef outpost, an artificial platform anchored to the coral spires, and transferred to a small two-person subpod. The enclosed space was cramped, barely large enough for the two of them to sit side by side. "This is the spot," Marina announced, powering the craft forward with gentle thrusts. Through the transparent dome, an entire forest of coral rose like an underwater orchard. Immense structures in the shape of fans and branches shimmered in the gloom, each movement swaying with the tide. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "Amazing. It's like we're drifting through an alien forest." She shut off the subpod's engine, letting the currents carry them. For a moment, they floated in serene silence. Only the faint hum of life outside, the gentle swirl of water, and their own breathing existed. He looked sideways at Marina, noticing the reflective glimmer in her eyes. "Thank you for this," he said softly. "I never imagined I'd see something so unspoiled." She lowered her gaze. It's easy to forget how precious it is, especially when political battles overshadow everything. She paused, exhaling softly. "Your presence here, Captain, has stirred quite a bit of talk among my people. Some fear that humans will eventually overrun these waters with advanced starships. Others see you as potential allies. And some, well, they see you as threats that must be neutralized." Ethan frowned. "Neutralized how?" Her expression became unreadable. "There are rumors, but rumors abound in any political climate, do they not?" The tension in the subpod thickened. She looked at him as if weighing a choice. Then she reached for his hand, a gesture that startled him. Her hand was warm, her skin smooth like polished riverstone. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "Most Terrans I've met have a certain distance about them, but you seem genuinely open." He couldn't help a half smile. "I won't deny that I'm a career officer, but I've learned that building bridges is just as important as safeguarding them." She inched closer until he could feel the soft warmth of her breath. In the glow of flickering bioluminescent corals, her eyes shone with a mixture of curiosity and longing. Ethan's heart thudded in his chest. Was this genuine or some subtle ploy? He tried to push away doubt. "Marina." She closed the gap, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, then more intense, as though breaking through an invisible barrier. Their exhalations fogged the glass around them, adding a veil of mist to the swirling corals outside. When she finally pulled away, her cheeks were flushed. Aquarians rarely showed such color, but her physiology allowed it. "I apologize if that was too forward." A swirl of contradictory emotions ran through him. On one level, he found her attractive, magnetic. On another, all his training screamed caution. Yet he brushed aside those alarms. "You caught me off guard," he admitted, voice slightly husky, "but I'm not complaining." Marina swallowed hard and looked away, as if something weighed on her. Her mind flashed to the instructions from Arion, the sample she needed to collect. She had the micro syringe in her belt. Should she do it now? A small prick on his skin, disguised as a lover's embrace, and she'd have the genetic material. But a pang of guilt blossomed in her chest. She found that she actually liked him. This earnest Terran, he was no monster plotting to conquer her world. He was simply a man doing his job, perhaps enthralled by her mysterious culture. The subpod swayed in the current. She steadied herself with a hand on his shoulder, leaning close to whisper, "This is forbidden among my people. But for some reason, I can't help it." Ethan gently cupped her chin, lifting her face. "We define our own boundaries, Marina." For a moment, she let herself believe that. She allowed the warmth and closeness to envelop her, ignoring the mission, ignoring Arion's orders, ignoring the looming possibility of betrayal. That night, Ethan found Marina slipping into his temporary quarters in Pearlspire's guest wing. Tension soared as they shared a few hushed words, then gave in to that unspoken spark. Later, when she had fallen asleep, he drifted into a troubled doze, a swirl of concerns plaguing him. Meanwhile, Marina quietly slid out of bed. Her heart pounded in her chest. She'd done it. She'd followed through with the seduction, but she hadn't yet taken the microsyringe sample. Feelings warred with duty in her mind. I can't fail now, she told herself. That internal voice, the disciplined agent side, emerged. And so, as Ethan lay in a half-sleep, she gently retrieved the device from her belt, pressing it to a small scratch on his wrist, perhaps a friction burn from their earlier intimacy. She harvested a minuscule quantity of blood. The device beeped inaudibly against her palm. She tucked it away, feeling a pang of shame twist inside her. It's done, she thought. But in the weeks to come, the memory of that night would haunt them both in ways neither could foresee. The next morning, Ethan awoke to find himself alone, though the lingering warmth on the sheets told him Marina had left not long ago. Groggy, he sat up and stretched. A dull throb pulsed behind his eyes. He walked to the basin sink, splashing cool water on his face, only to realize faint bruise-like marks peppered the inside of his arm. Strange, he thought, probably from the tension or the sub-pod harness from yesterday. Shrugging it off, he dressed quickly, prepared for another day of diplomatic obligations. Down in Pearl Spire's central atrium, Ethan joined the Terran delegation for breakfast. He noticed that he felt unusually warm in the pressurized environment, beads of sweat forming at his temples. You all right, Captain? Ensign Salazar asked, concerned. Ethan forced a smile, sipping water. I'm fine, maybe a slight cold from the humidity. But by midday, as he accompanied Lord Selther on a tour of the reef hatcheries, Ethan's headache intensified. A wave of dizziness forced him to lean against a column. You look pale, Captain, Selther said, furrowing his brow. We can return to the city if you need medical attention. No, Ethan paused as another sharp pang flared in his temples. I'll be fine. Perhaps I should visit the infirmary to be safe. Selther nodded. I'll escort you. They cut the tour short and returned to the upper spires, where a Terran medical officer had set up a small clinic for the traveling delegation. As soon as Ethan arrived, the medic scanned him. Strange, she murmured, studying the readout on her device. Your temperature is elevated and your white blood cell count is spiking. It's as though you've encountered a bacterial or viral infection that we can't quite identify. Ethan frowned. Could it be something in the local environment and some environment? Did I eat something that didn't agree with me? I'll run more tests, the medic said, looking concerned. But for now, rest. I'll keep this confidential. We don't want to cause a diplomatic stir. Ethan nodded, lying down on the exam table. A swirl of anxious thoughts rushed through his mind. Diplomatic fiasco aside, he felt genuinely unwell. The pressure behind his eyes throbbed, and his joints ached. Throughout that afternoon, the medic's tests came back inconclusive. No known pathogen matched these symptoms. By nightfall, Ethan's condition had worsened slightly. Mild fever, unexplained blotches forming near his collarbone, a pervasive sense of fatigue. Unbeknownst to him, in another part of the city, Marina had locked herself in her private quarters. She felt something was off, an odd dryness in her usually smooth emerald skin, a slight tightness across her chest. She chalked it up to stress or guilt. But it was far from that. Whatever archaic viral blueprint had slumbered in the shadows, it had awakened. The ancient plague was never just a myth. It was real, and now it had new life, thanks to the improbable synergy of Aquarian and human contact. High beneath the ocean floor, in a concealed chamber near the Great Reef, Chancellor Arion paced before glass containers filled with swirling teal fluid. Genetic readouts flickered on screens. A team of Aquarian scientists worked under hushed tension, analyzing data samples. Arion's personal device chimed. He swiped it. A grin crossed his lips. Marina had transmitted the microsample from Captain Cross. Excellent, he murmured. Let's see what we're dealing with. The scientists took the data, cross-referencing it with historical virus strains. They meticulously began calibrating the pathogen. Arion oversaw them closely. The goal, ladies and gentlemen, he announced to the lab staff, is to produce a stable version that targets humans specifically. Our ancient texts speak of a plague that decimated early Aquarian colonies after a few misguided souls mated with human explorers. But that variant was lethal to Aquarians. One scientist, A stooped Aquarian with silver gill frills shook his head warily. We are on the cusp of re-engineering that strain into a human-killing virus. But it's complicated. The original pathogen can still infect us. If the mutation is incomplete, it could come back to haunt Aquarians as well. Arion's jaw tightened. That is why we must be careful. These new data points from the Terran captain will help us refine the virus. We'll ensure it remains harmless to our people. A second scientist looked up from her console, face etched with concern. We're detecting an anomaly. The Terran sample suggests a synergy with standard Aquarian enzymes. Are we sure the subject is fully human? It's possible, Arion said quietly, that the captain was exposed to Aquarian genetic material. However, this shouldn't complicate matters if we proceed carefully. A lab alarm beeped softly in the background. Another researcher turned pale. Chancellor, the test sample is showing accelerated mutation. Could the plague be adapting on its own? The software indicates partial reversion to the older, Aquarian lethal form. Arion's eyes flickered with annoyance. Then isolate that sample. We can't afford an accidental outbreak. Send the stable batch to me. As the scientist scrambled, Arion stepped away, a swirl of conflicting thoughts. He had planned a grand unveiling of this new superweapon to the High Council, forcing them to concede to his power. But if the plague risked harming Aquarians, that spelled disaster. He retrieved his communicator and keyed in a secure frequency. After a few moments, Marina's weary face appeared on the screen. Chancellor, she greeted, though her voice sounded strained. You look unwell, my dear, Arion said, controlling his features. Is there an issue? Marina hesitated, as if reluctant to admit the truth. I've been feeling off since last night. Dryness, mild feverish symptoms, and rumor has it Captain Cross is also ill. Arion's expression darkened. Impossible. The plague shouldn't spread that quickly, nor should it affect you, if properly mutated. Her eyes widened in alarm. What are you saying, that I've been infected? Calm yourself, Marina, he snapped. I'll arrange for you to come here. We'll run tests in the lab. It's likely a mild side effect from the encounter. Now that we have the captain's sample, we can finalize the pathogen's human-specific design. A wave of dread crashed over her. She had known the plan, known the potential risk, but being told she might actually be infected was different. I understand, Chancellor, but what of Captain Cross? Arion's lips curled into a dismissive sneer. He served his purpose. If he's infected, so be it. We only need him alive long enough to keep the Terrans from fleeing. The last thing we need is them quarantining the sector. Let him suffer for a bit. If the Terrans leave too soon, we won't be able to refine the final batch. Marina swallowed hard. Yes, sir. The transmission ended. She slumped against her chamber wall, hands shaking. Was she truly ready for this? Would she let Captain Cross and his crew suffer simply to ensure an Aquarian advantage? She had sworn loyalty to the cause, but the spark of empathy inside her was growing, fueled by the memory of Ethan's earnest eyes. She wondered if there was any line she wouldn't cross, or if it was already too late. Despite his worsening fatigue, Ethan refused to remain bedridden. The Terran medic insisted, but he needed answers. His condition grew more dire each hour. Fever spikes, muscle cramps, darkened splotches under his skin. Finally, he confronted Lord Selther in the city's administration wing. I demand to know if there's a known Aquarian pathogen that might be causing this, Ethan said, glaring at the taller man. My medical officer can't identify it. Selther's eyes flickered with genuine concern. Captain, we value your well-being. Our medical records show no active pathogens that would affect humans this way. Ethan ground his teeth. Then maybe they're not in your official records. Something is happening, Lord Selther, and I suspect it goes beyond mere chance. At that moment, Marina arrived, having heard of Ethan's confrontation. She found him leaning on a corridor railing, breathing heavily. Ethan, she whispered, pressing a hand to his forehead. You're burning up. He turned to her, an almost accusatory glint in his eye. Did you know about this? Marina stiffened. She could see the distrust etched into his expression. The guilt of her secret mission weighed on her like an anchor. I only know rumors, she managed. Let me help you. I can take you somewhere private, away from prying eyes. We have underground medical facilities. He hesitated, scanning her face. His vision blurred slightly. All right, he said at last. Just no more lies. She took his arm, guiding him away from the main corridors. He coughed, breath ragged. In truth, her own symptoms were worsening. She felt a dryness in her throat, a stinging ache in her limbs. She prayed it was just stress, but deep down she knew the plague was real. A secret route, they descended an old service elevator that took them below the grand city, passing abandoned lobbies and dimly lit corridors. The hum of machinery echoed off algae-streaked walls. Finally, they reached a sealed hatch. "This is an old Aquarian research wing," Marina explained quietly, punching in a code. "Very few know of its existence." The hatch opened, revealing a modest medical bay with dusty consoles and empty Bacta tanks. In the center of the room, a single diagnostic unit sat waiting. Ethan all but collapsed onto the padded surface, panting. Marina scrambled to activate the system, brushing aside cobwebs. The console lit up, scanning him from head to toe. "This system predates modern architecture," she muttered, "but hopefully it can identify older strains if they exist." As it scanned, she ran the same diagnostics on herself. Her heart pounded with dread, and the result was immediate, glaring in big, bold symbols on the screen. Pathogen detected. Aqua plague, unstable strain. Her breath caught in her throat. The plague was real, and both she and Ethan were infected with some mutated variant. "It's not possible," she whispered. Ethan winced, trying to sit up. "So it's true, the Aqua plague from the stories." She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "I didn't believe it was real. The legend said it was lethal to Aquarians centuries ago, triggered by close, intimate contact with humans. We thought it had died out or was contained." His gaze softened. "So you didn't set out to infect me?" She shook her head vehemently, swallowing a wave of guilt. "No, that was never the plan." Her mind churned with confusion. Arion had wanted to engineer a version lethal to humans, not to let it revert to the original Aquarian killing strain. They must have lost control of the virus's mutation. Before she could explain further, the console beeped. A red alert flashed. Condition critical. The readout indicated both Ethan and Marina had mere days, maybe less, before advanced tissue damage set in. She cursed under her breath. "This strain is accelerating. If we don't find a cure," he gripped her hand. "We'll find one," he insisted, though his voice was raspy from fever. At that moment, footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Marina's eyes widened. "We need to hide. This place is restricted. And if certain people see us here..." But it was too late. 3 Aquarian guards, faces hidden behind ornate helmets, marched in, weapons raised. Standing behind them was none other than Chancellor Arion. Marina's heart sank. "Chancellor." Arion's gaze blazed with cold fury. "So it's true. You've discovered the old facility. How resourceful." He looked to Ethan, who managed to stand, albeit shakily. "And the Terran captain, still alive." Ethan steadied himself, drawing on his last reserves of strength. "You orchestrated this, didn't you? The plague, everything?" Arion's lip curled. "You humans are a blight, Captain. We only wanted a weapon that could keep you off our planets, but it seems the plague hasn't stabilized." He turned to Marina, disappointment etched on his face. "I trusted you to follow orders. You were to acquire data from the Terran, not contract the plague yourself." She bristled, still trembling from her own fever. "You never told me you'd release an unstable strain, that you'd let it infect me. I was under the impression we'd isolate it so only humans were at risk." Arion waved dismissively. "Technicalities. The path to power is never without sacrifice. You knew the risks." Marina fumed, though her legs felt too weak for a fight. Ethan glanced at her, silent understanding passing between them. Then Arion nodded to his guards. "Seize them. We'll take them both to the main lab. Perhaps their suffering can expedite finalizing the mutation." 2 guards lunged forward. Despite his fever, Ethan reacted with military precision, pivoting to strike one guard in the chest with an elbow. Meanwhile, Marina, though fatigued, managed a fluid Aquarian martial move, a quick strike that disabled the second guard's weapon. Arion sneered. "Impressive, but you can't escape that easily." The third guard fired a stun blast from his staff. Ethan felt electricity dance along his nerves, but the shot only grazed him, leaving him dazed. Marina grabbed his arm, adrenaline surging through her system. She spotted an emergency exit to the left. "This way, hurry!" They scrambled, weaving past the momentarily stunned guards. Arion's enraged shout echoed behind them. More blasts seared the metal walls, missing by inches. The corridor beyond led to a sub-level that opened into deeper aquatic zones. Marina knew a path that might lead them out into the open ocean if they could reach a small maintenance sub. Their footsteps thundered on metal grating. Alarm klaxons began to wail throughout the old facility. Arion was clearly mobilizing more squads. At last, they burst into a watery chamber where a half-rusted submersible lay moored. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. Nonetheless, they had no other choice. Marina leaped into the pilot seat, her hands trembling from the combined stress of infection and fear. Ethan sealed the hatch behind them, panting heavily. Outside, the corridor lights flared as armed silhouettes appeared. The sub-engines roared to life with a labored cough. "Hold on!" Marina cried. She yanked the controls, and the craft lurched forward into the water tunnel, submerging within seconds. Blaster bolts sizzled through the water behind them, but the sub's hull was thick enough to withstand the glancing shots. Within minutes, the glow of Pearl Spire's underwater districts vanished, replaced by the open ocean's dim grandeur. Ethan collapsed into the co-pilot seat, feverish sweat dripping down his face. Where do we go now?" Marina clenched her jaw, fighting back nausea. "There's an Aquarian scientist, Dr. Atara Reefsong, who opposed Arion's extremist stance. She researches ancient diseases. If anyone knows how to cure or at least treat the plague, it's her." Ethan struggled to keep conscious. "Then let's find her." Marina nodded, guiding the sub deeper into the darkness. The coordinates for Reefsong's secret lab blinked on her console, an unassuming set of numbers that could decide the fate of an entire galaxy. They surfaced at a hidden cove some 200 kilometers from Pearlspire, where rugged underwater cliffs formed a natural labyrinth. Marina had visited only once before, but she remembered the route. Docking the battered sub, they staggered into an adjacent cavern that opened into a series of air-filled tunnels. The temperature here was cooler, the rock walls slick with algae. At last, they emerged into a large domed chamber lit by biolamps. A lone figure stood amid racks of lab equipment, a middle-aged Aquarian woman with short, teal hair and piercing golden eyes. She wore a simple cloak, her arms dotted with faint scars. At the sight of them, she tensed. "Marina Tide," the Reefsong said, setting aside a beaker. "You come here unannounced, and with a human, no less." Marina's breath hitched. "We need your help, Doctor. The Aqua plague, it's real and it's mutated. We're both infected." Reefsong's face went pale. She rushed forward, scanning them with a handheld device that beeped ominously. "By the tides," she whispered. "Your biomarkers are off the charts. The plague is advanced in both of you, but especially in the Aquarian." Ethan clutched his side, suppressed a cough. "Please, Dr. Reefsong, we have reason to believe Chancellor Arion is weaponizing this plague. It might become an interstellar catastrophe." She ushered them to a pair of medical cots. "Lie down, I'll administer a stabilizing agent. Then if we're lucky, we can attempt to replicate the old cure." Marina's vision spun. She recognized Reefsong's name from old reports. The doctor had once campaigned for shared medical research between Aquarian and Terran worlds, but her proposals were shot down by conservative elements. As soon as the injection took effect, Marina felt a slight clarity return. "Doctor, is there truly a cure? The ancient records said the plague simply vanished over time, or was hidden." Reefsong pursed her lips. "There were partial treatments developed centuries ago, lost to the chaos of the Great Rift War, but I've spent years reconstructing them. The formula relies on human antibodies that can neutralize certain enzymes. Ironically, the cure for an Aquarian plague might come from Terran physiology." Ethan tried to focus, though the fever made it difficult. "Take whatever you need," he said. Reefsong sighed. "It's not that simple. The cure requires a large-scale bone marrow extraction from a human donor, plus a refined distillate from certain sea corals that are extremely rare and heavily guarded." Marina's eyes widened. "Guarded by whom?" The doctor looked grave. "The High Council placed them under restricted access, ironically because Arion insisted they might contain dangerous properties. Now I suspect he wanted to remove any chance of a cure." Ethan struggled to sit up. "Tell us what to do. We don't have time to worry about restrictions." Reefsong's gaze flicked between the two of them. Marina, you'll need to retrieve the coral. I can direct you to an off-grid location where these corals might still grow. Meanwhile, Captain Cross must remain here, undergoing a partial marrow extraction so I can refine the antibody solution. Marina's mouth felt dry, her limbs trembling from infection. Yet she nodded resolutely. We can do this, but I'll need a sub and a guide. Reef Song produced a small data chip. Coordinates to an underwater canyon. The corals glow bright pink under certain wavelengths. We only need a handful, but it's lethal territory. Undersea creatures dwell there, and Arion's patrols may also be sniffing around. Marina stood wincing at her body's protest. She turned to Ethan. Rest. Let the doctor help you. He reached out, grabbed her hand. Despite the fever, his grip was firm. Be careful. You come back to me, got it? She managed a shaky smile. I will. A perilous expedition. Piloting Reef Song's smaller, faster sub, Marina headed for the canyon. Each passing hour brought new waves of fever, but she pressed on, buoyed by the stabilizing injection. The undersea canyon loomed like a jagged scar. Hydrothermal vents spewed plumes of hot water. Strange bioluminescent creatures flitted at the edges of her spotlight. Indeed, she spotted the glimmering pink coral on a rocky ledge far below. As she guided the sub down, she activated a specialized diving suit. The suit provided oxygen, thermal insulation, and minimal aquatic propulsion. She surfaced from the sub's lower hatch, drifting gently in the pitch-black waters. In her visor's HUD, the coral patch glowed bright pink. Exiting the sub felt like entering another world, a silent alien realm of deep ocean currents. She carried a small containment cylinder for the coral sample. Carefully, she drifted closer, using the suit's thrusters. Then, a predatory silhouette emerged from behind a column of black rock, a massive eel-like creature with spiny fins and jaws brimming with needle-like teeth. Its eyes glowed faintly. Marina's pulse hammered. She was in no condition to engage a deep-sea monster. But the coral was just meters away. She hovered, trying not to provoke it. The creature hissed, swirling forward. You're Fimmerton. She raised her diving knife reflexively. In a fluid motion, the eel lashed out. Marina kicked away, narrowly evading a deadly snap. She circled behind a rocky outcropping, heart pounding. The beast lunged again, slamming into the rock. Bubbles of silt and debris clouded the water. Thinking quickly, she pulled out a small sonic emitter Dr. Reef Song had provided. She pressed the button. It emitted a sub-audible frequency that many deep-sea predators loathed. The eel flinched, twisting away in agitation. Seizing the moment, Marina darted to the coral patch, using a specialized cutting tool to slice off several branches. She sealed them in the containment cylinder and quickly retreated. The eel, enraged by the sonic pulses, whirled in the water behind her. Its jaws parted for one last savage bite. Marina soared upward, hooking around the sub's side ladder. The beast's maw clamped inches from her fins. She slammed the hatch, panting. Mission accomplished, at a price. Inside, her body shook, both from adrenaline and the plague's progression. Her skin felt clammy, and waves of nausea roiled in her stomach. But she had the coral. That was all that mattered. She powered up the sub's engines, ignoring the creature's furious thrashing outside. Hold on, Ethan, she whispered, eyes wet. Just hold on. Marina returned to Dr. Reef Song's lab to find it transformed into a makeshift operating theater. Ethan lay on a table, unconscious, while the doctor and a robotic assist arm worked on carefully extracting bone marrow from his upper hip. Blood transfusion lines coiled around him, delivering extra fluids. Marina's heart seized at the sight of him, so still, so vulnerable. She clutched the container of pink coral. I got it, she said breathlessly. Reef Song's eyes lit with hope. Quickly, place it in the synthesizer over there. She did so, then staggered to Ethan's side. How is he? She asked, voice unsteady. He's in critical condition but still hanging on, Reef Song replied, focusing on the surgical unit. The extraction is nearly done. Once we have enough marrow, I can combine his antibodies with the coral enzymes to create a dose. It'll be enough to treat both of you, maybe more. Marina swallowed, tears threatening. She gently brushed aside a lock of Ethan's sweat-dampened hair. Don't you dare die on me, she whispered. We haven't finished our story. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the outer cavern. Alarm! Alarm shrieked. Reef Song's eyes snapped wide. They found us. The monitor showed an Aquarian assault sub forcing its way into the cove, flanked by smaller subfighters. Troops poured into the tunnels. Arion, Marina hissed. Within moments, the lab door buckled under repeated blasts. Reef Song rushed to finalize the serum. Marina, buy me time. I need 10 more minutes. Marina nodded, retrieving a sidearm from a storage locker. Her arms trembled from fever, but adrenaline surged. She barricaded the entrance as best she could and waited. Then the door exploded inward in a spray of sparks. Arion strode in with half a dozen heavily armed guards. His face twisted in triumph. "You've led me on quite the chase," he sneered, eyes flicking to the unconscious Ethan. "But it ends here. Hand over the sample and the Terran. I'll be merciful and let you die quickly." Marina leveled her blaster at him, hands shaking with a mix of rage and sickness. "I won't let you turn this plague into a weapon. It's killing Aquarians, too." Arion's composure faltered momentarily. Collateral damage. The new variant was supposed to be corrected, but if it can't be stabilized, it still provides a convenient purge. Any Aquarians too weak or willing to fraternize with humans will be removed from the gene pool. Marina's stomach churned with disgust. "You're insane." Arion's guards took aim, but she fired first, dropping two of them with well-placed shots. Then the others returned fire. Marina dove behind a metal console, heart hammering. Sparks rained down as lab equipment shattered under the barrage. "Dr. Reef Song!" she shouted over the chaos. "How much longer?" The doctor's voice was strained. "Almost there. Keep them off me." Arion advanced, fury contorting his face. "You dare side with a Terran over your own empire?" Marina peeked out and loosed another shot that forced him to duck. "An empire that kills its own for political gain is no longer worth serving." A guard circled around, pinning her position. She was losing strength, the infection draining her stamina. She managed to shoot the guard, but another replaced him. In the corner, Ethan groaned, half conscious. The sedation was wearing off and the throes of fever rattled him. He tried to lift his head, glimpsing the firefight. Summoning the last of his strength, he rolled off the table, rummaging for a sidearm. It caught Marina in the shoulder, spinning her around. She gasped, collapsing to her knees, blood seeped between her fingers as she clutched the wound. Arion stepped forward with a cruel laugh. "Pathetic. You let a Terran poison your mind. And your body. Now look at you." Rage and desperation flared in her eyes. But before Arion could finish her off, a single shot cracked through the fray. Ethan, trembling but determined, had propped himself against the surgical table and fired. The energy bolt caught Arion in the chest. The Chancellor reeled, dropping his weapon. He stared at Ethan with utter disbelief, then crumpled to the floor. Marina slumped, relief flooding her, but the guards remained. Another volley of blaster fire whined. She braced for the end, only for it not to come. Dr. Reefsong had activated an emergency shield barrier around the operating area. The doctor rushed forward with a small injector gun. "Marina, here!" She administered the freshly synthesized serum into Marina's neck. Then she dashed to Ethan, injecting him next. For a moment, the world went quiet. The guards tried to break through the shield, but the energy field held. On the floor, Arion lay motionless. Marina's eyes fluttered closed as a wave of dizziness and heat radiated from her core, then ebbed. She could feel something shifting, cells rebalancing, the plague receding. Ethan gasped, color slowly returning to his cheeks. The pounding fever eased. With their leader down and the shield blocking them, Arion's guards hesitated. Dr. Reefsong hurried to the console. "I've triggered an alarm that will broadcast every detail of this fiasco to the High Council," she said. "They'll know about Arion's treachery, the plague, everything." Marina and Ethan exchanged a weary, grateful look. He reached over to her, gently pressing a hand to her wounded shoulder. "You're hit," she grimaced. "I'll live." He smiled faintly, relief shining in his gaze. "We both will." Minutes later, as the shield's power began to fail, a new group of Aquarian officials burst in. High Council guards, not Arion's personal troops. Seeing the case and Arion's body on the floor, they quickly disarmed what remained of his forces. One official recognized Dr. Reefsong. "What is happening here?" he demanded. She stood tall. "Chancellor Arion attempted to weaponize an ancient plague, endangering both humans and Aquarians. These two," she gestured to Ethan and Marina, risk their lives to stop him. The official's gaze shifted from the sedated Terran to the wounded Aquarian at his side. There was shock and a trace of admiration. In the days that followed, the High Council launched a full investigation. Dr. Reefsong's evidence, plus the partial confessions of the surviving guards, confirmed Arion's plot. The plague research was destroyed under the Council's supervision, though Dr. Reefsong kept a single sample of the cure to ensure no further tragedies. Marina recovered swiftly, her wound healing cleanly. Ethan, aided by advanced treatments, also bounced back. Both bore scars of their ordeal, physical and emotional. But the plague was finally contained. Human diplomats, outraged at Arion's treachery, demanded accountability. Yet the High Council, equally horrified, cooperated fully to ensure peace negotiations continued. The tragedy, ironically, became a catalyst for deeper understanding between Aquarians and humans. In a quiet ceremony, the Council bestowed a ceremonial pearl medal on Ethan for bravery in the face of internal corruption. They also honored Marina, though some among her people regarded her with a mixture of fear and awe. She had mingled intimately with a human, something that had once been taboo. After the ceremony, Ethan and Marina found themselves alone on a coral balcony overlooking the shimmering seas of Epsilon Oceanus. She wore a loose-fitting gown that billowed in the breeze, and he stood beside her in his Terran uniform, still sporting a sling for his half-healed injuries. She gave him a wry smile. "You never did get that peaceful, strictly diplomatic mission you came for." He chuckled. "No, but we found something else." Their eyes locked, a quiet acknowledgement of what had transpired. It was more than shared trauma. It was the flicker of genuine affection that had survived betrayal and nearly fatal disease. She leaned her head on his shoulder, mindful of his sling. "What happens next for us?" He pressed a soft kiss to her temple. "We see where this new tide takes us, together." Months later, Epsilon Oceanus was humming with a cautious yet hopeful energy. The High Council had signed new treaties with the Terran Federation, cooperative pacts on research, resource management, and cultural exchange. On a bright afternoon, Captain Ethan Cross returned to Pearlspire, this time without a warship. He arrived on a smaller diplomatic vessel, accompanied by medical experts and trade advisors. Aquarian sub-fighters escorted him in a friendly formation. Waiting on the docking platform was Marina Tide, wearing a light coral pendant that matched her emerald skin. When Ethan disembarked, the two simply smiled at each other, closing the gap. In that gesture, the entire crowd witnessed the crystallization of everything they had fought for, a fragile but promising bond between two species once divided by mistrust and ancient warnings. Beyond them, somewhere deep under the waves, the coral reef still swayed with the tide, living testament to the delicate balance of life. The terror of the Aqua plague had taught both peoples a lesson, that the line between salvation and destruction is often one scientific twist away. And in the heart of that precarious boundary, only empathy, cooperation, and genuine connection could guide them toward a better future. No grand ceremony marked Ethan and Marina's reunion that day, but the significance was undeniable. Their interwoven destinies, born of a clandestine mission and a near-deadly plague, had planted the seeds for a new era of partnership between humans and Aquarians. And though new challenges would surely arise across the star lanes, they both stood ready, hand in hand, to face them together. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support our channel and stay tuned for more epic stories like this. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts on the story. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're listening from too. We love hearing from fans all over the world.